So, Donald Trump just tried to lock down the most powerful technology in the world and use it as leverage against his own allies, Canada and Europe in particular. The countries that stood beside America for over 80 years. His government just told them, hey, if you want access to the AI chips running your hospitals, your banks, and your pension funds, well, you rent them from us on our terms under our law. And hey, when we decide that the relationship has changed, well, we control the switch.
And Canada and Europe just said no. Ottawa announced a direct investment in Canadian-controlled servers, Canadian-controlled data centers, and Canadian AI infrastructure. The goal is blunt. The system that runs this country answers to nobody else but Canadian law. Not Washington, not Trump, Ottawa.
So if you're thinking, hey, but how does this affect me? Well, stick around because we're going to tell you. This has everything to do with your medical records, your retirement savings, and the bank that holds your mortgage. This is the most important infrastructure decision Canada has made in a generation, and most people have no idea that's just happened.
So let's start with the basics. A semiconductor chip, the kind that we're talking about today, is the engine inside every important machine in the modern world. That's like the AI system that catches fraud on your bank account, the servers that store your health record, the software managing your pension fund, the military systems protecting Canadian airspace, the logistic networks that get food to grocery stores. All of it runs on chips, and without them, the modern world stops.
And right now, the most powerful of those chips, the ones that run advanced artificial intelligence, are made by a handful of American companies. Which means if a country wants to access the most critical technology of the decade, it has to deal with Washington. Now, I think we can all agree, that sucks. But this is also where the story starts, and it's exactly where Trump barges in.
So here's what Trump's government proposed. They want to call it an AI chips club. You know, Trump loves naming clubs. The terms were clear. If you're a country like Canada, France, Germany, it doesn't matter. And if you want access to the most advanced chips in the world, you have to do two things. First, you have to invest in American data centers on American soil, following American law, and having American control. Second, you have to accept American security terms and let Washington decide whether you qualify as a trusted partner. If you don't agree to both, you do not get those chips.
So think about what that actually means. The United States is telling its own allies, hey, you want the technology that runs your hospitals and your banks and your defense systems and pension funds? Well, then you have to rent it from us on our terms, under our law, and if we ever decide that the relationship has changed, the way it changed, you remember, on our lumber, the way it changed on dairy, the way it changed on steel, well, we control that spigot.
I really hate Trump's government. It's really ruining the world. Anyway, because we all know that we are no longer an alliance. He is wanting to be the landlord, telling you whether the lights in your house stay on. And in this deal, the landlord still has the master key, and he's not giving it up.
No. Now, here's where it actually gets even more interesting. Europe looked at that arrangement and did something we don't often hear in alliance politics. They said no. Not we have concerns, not let us form a working group. No. The European Union has something called the Anti-Coercion Instrument. We talked about it before. It's a legal framework built specifically to push back on exactly this kind of economic arm twisting. And they started putting serious money into their own chip infrastructure, their own data centers, and their own AI systems. They haven't pulled the trigger on that yet, but it's sitting there ready to be used.
Good for them. Now, when Brussels talks about what they call technological sovereignty, they mean something very specific. They mean that if the lights went out on Washington tomorrow, can Europe still run Europe? Can a French hospital process its patient records? Can a German bank clear its transactions? Can a Dutch pension fund manage its assets? That's real questions. And Europe decided that the answer had better be yes, regardless of what Washington decided to do.
The specific rule that Trump proposed was actually pulled back. Basically, Washington blinked. But the instinct, the belief that America should own the critical infrastructure its allies depend on, that didn't go anywhere. It's still here, and it's not going away anytime soon. Believe me, it will surface again.
But Trump proved he's still taco. Trump always chickens out if you push back, and that's what we have to do. And that's what Canada has been doing. In the past, we were always telling ourselves a comfortable story that we're the good ally, we share the border, a language, a military history. We had NORAD, the Five Eyes, and we always thought that Washington would treat Canada a little differently than he does France or Japan. But Trump and his government has proved that Canada doesn't matter one bit.
I think that we've learned our lesson. And remember, AI chips are not lumber. They're more strategic than lumber, more foundational, because when Washington controls the chips that your hospitals run on, it is not threatening your exports. It's threatening whether your emergency room can function on Tuesday morning. That's a different order of leverage entirely.
That is scary because Trump has proven he does not care one bit about human life, which is why what Ottawa announced matters as much as it does. The Canadian Sovereign AI Compute Strategy isn't just a study. It's not a discussion on paper. It's a direct investment in Canadian-controlled servers and data centers. The goal is explicit. The systems that run Canada's health records, Canada's banking, Canada's government services, Canada's defense, they will answer to Canadian law, Canadian courts, Canadian government.
So under this strategy, your medical records, your retirement savings, all that is governed by rules that Canadian politicians are accountable to. And if a future administration in Washington ever decides to use technology access as leverage against Ottawa, well, Canada can still run Canada.
Sovereignty in the 20th century meant controlling your borders and your currency. Sovereignty in 2026 means controlling your servers, your chips, your data, and the legal jurisdiction that protects all three.
Canada's response now needs to match what Europe is already doing. Diversify, build, partner with Japan, South Korea, the EU, countries that are just as determined not to be entirely dependent on a single supplier of the world's most critical technology. Those conversations, they need to be happening at the cabinet level today, not after Washington reminds us why we need them.
We need to treat compute infrastructure the way we treat electricity, the way we treat highways and ports and clean water. It is strategic. It is national. It is not a product that you rent from your most unpredictable ally. Because when you build your economy and your security and your public services on infrastructure that you don't control, well, you're not just renting convenience. You're renting vulnerability. And the company renting it to you still has that master key. And in Trump's USA, we can't trust them at all.
Very true, but I will say that the Americans are right about one thing. This technology is the most powerful and most strategic in the world, which is exactly why Canada cannot afford to rent it indefinitely. Ottawa just took a real step in the right direction. The question now is speed and scale. Are we building enough of our own capacity in chips, in data, in infrastructure to matter when the real pressure comes down the line?
It's really important that we follow through on these major project initiatives that Carney has introduced, so I hope that he gets the support he needs. Because the future is not sovereign just because we say it is. It is sovereign if we can still run it when the pressure starts. If Europe is being told that access comes with strings, well, Canada should stop acting like the scissors will never reach us. And we just proved that we understand that. So now we need to prove that we can move fast enough to matter.
So we want to know what you think. Do you believe that Canada is moving fast enough on this? And here's the bigger question. If Trump ever decided to use technology access as leverage against Ottawa the way he's used tariffs and lumber and dairy, what should Canada's response be? Yes or no? Do we push back or do we cave in?
Leave your response in the comments below because we read every single one and we learn from you every day.
And as always, if you want to support this channel, make sure to like, ring that bell, and subscribe so you don't miss another one of these videos. And your support means a lot to us. You can check out the links in the pinned comment down below for links to our merch store and the A-Team.
Thanks for watching, everybody, and you know where we'll see you tomorrow, right here.
Ciao for now.